Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and we're out here in Studio G, and I'm sitting behind the beautiful 6-inch Atlas lathe, a mini lathe. I only acquired it recently, and I hope you watch some of those videos. I think I'll put the links to those videos where I purchased this down in the comment or in the description below. You know, that video where I bought this was a blockbuster. You know, with about 60,000 views. So if you missed it, go back and catch that. There's really some amazing things in there. But the purpose of today's video is to kind of give a walk around. I haven't really done that yet. Evaluate this machine, kind of decide what I want to do with it. Am I going to proceed cleaning it up, restoring it, and using it in future videos? I do not know yet. And I'm kind of waiting for reactions out there because in many ways the videos that I have done already on the Unimat lathe are an abject failure. And well, let me show you something else right now. As you can see, I've just put the Unimat lathe behind the Atlas here, my chin sitting on it so you get an idea of the size. And really what I'm doing here is kind of comparing the size of the Unimat with really what is already a small lathe. So I would call this a micro lathe, and the Atlas probably a mini lathe, if those words mean anything at all. But let me tell you what my original intentions were before well, let me just tell you. Just for a size comparison here, the Atlas lathe is a 6-inch swing lathe, and the Unimat is a 3-inch swing. So in effect, this machine is twice as big as this in terms of swing capacity anyway. Probably about half the length also. But let me tell you one more thing, and then we're going to concentrate here on the Atlas lathe, the condition of it, and so on. But my original intentions when I got the Unimat lathe was to make a large series of videos covering every aspect of it, maybe 30 or 40 videos even. But after putting it on there for just 5 or 6 videos, I can see there's no interest in it. But again, the original intention was a complete series on this, and then when I bought the Atlas a few months ago, I decided, well, when I'm done with this, and I'm delusional now, totally delusional, when I'm done with the series on this, then I'm going to make a series on the Atlas lathe, which is a mini lathe rather than a micro lathe, as I said. And then I even had a fantasy that maybe I would buy a Shoreline lathe and do a series on that. But, there has to be an audience out there in order for me to do that, and it really does not exist. All right, I'm going to move the Unimat out of the way now and talk exclusively about the Atlas. Before I put the little Unimat to rest here, let me ask you a question, and please answer in the comments. But I was thinking about making a project with this machine in a video series, and I was looking for a project that maybe people would be interested in, and I came up with a reprint here of, and this is from Unimat, and it's a project published by that company, and it's a little steam engine. I know some of you guys are sick of steam engines, but I do have a set of plans for it so that, I do have what I need. That's what it looks like right there. So I have what I need here to make a winter project if there was an interest. So if 100 people or more make a comment down below that they would like that, let me know. Otherwise, I think I'll let it die on the vine. I think you will remember that I was very disappointed when I purchased this machine because I was hoping that all of the accessories would be in the cabinet below, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But anyway, these are the accessories that did come with it. Now, the 4-jaw chuck was the only thing that was in that cabinet. The rest was gear pullers, if you remember that, and I have sold them. But I might have covered this before, but let me go through it real quickly again with you. Okay, in review here, the 4-jaw chuck came with the machine in the cabinet. There's a 3-jaw already on the machine. It needs a good derusting also, but this will clean up. I just haven't gotten around to it, and maybe never will. But on the tailstock here was this Jacobs drill chuck, really rusty. Matter of fact, it doesn't turn at all. It probably can be cleaned up. I don't think I want to mess with it. But shortly after I bought this machine, I ran into this Jacobs chuck. I forgot where, but it does have the number 1 Morse taper shank on it, so it would fit, but I believe it's a 3/8 rather than a 1/2, because the key for this chuck does not fit in this chuck. But anyway, I got chucks. It also came with a live center here, not good. It feels rough. Feels like I found it on the beach. We got a tool post, and this handle here, this crank, I thought it would fit here on the compound, and it's a homemade compound. That's not good, but actually it's just a spare for the carriage or the tailstock. And we got an extra center, two centers, number 1s. It will require a number 2 for the headstock, and I think I got one down in the basement. Well, there's a couple tools there, and then a tool holder, but this is way too big. Well, it does fit in that. It is way too big for this machine. It's out of proportion. More about that in a minute. Oh, how I lamented the fact that there weren't any more accessories down in the cabinet. Let's take one more look, shall we? Remember, I picked the lock. Did you watch that? Well, what the heck is this? Never noticed that before. Wonder what's in there. By the way, this Atlas 6-inch lathe is identical to the Sears Craftsman 6-inch lathe, except for the badge and maybe a slightly difference in color. But let's take a look what Michael sent me here from Michigan. Again, thanks, Michael, if I haven't already said that. He knew that I had bought this and wondered if I could use any items that he had, and he ran across them recently. So let's see what we got here. Okay, number 1 Morse taper, and this is some kind of tool holder. Looks like about 3/4 inch right there. And there is a, oh, what was that? A tool post along with the rocker. And what I said a few minutes ago in regards to the other machine here, where did I put it? Okay, this shouldn't have been in the box. This came with the machine, remember? And I told you it was too large, so this is the correct size tool holder for this series of lathes. So I'll set this aside. That will work on my other machine. So there are 2 of those that they're both straight, and a cutoff tool along with the blade, a nice narrow blade, a drift. There's a socket that goes from a number 1 to a number 2. Tool post wrench marked Atlas. Now this will fit in the tailstock and hold small dies. Remember, I made one of those recently for the Unimat. And there is the bearing for the end of the lead screw, an extra one, a collar. Now look at this knob that was included, and it's missing one of the handles, but this apparently is the correct one for the compound, but and I'll see if I can make it fit. And as I said, some other posts there. So again, thank you, Michael, for all this stuff that will work on this machine. Okay, for now at least, these are the tools that came with the machine. These from Michael. I'm going to keep them separate from now because these really need to be processed and rust removed to be useful, or so that I could use them in a video. But let me show you a page from the Atlas catalog from the early 50s where they actually showed this machine and they show what came with it originally without paying extra. Okay, here's the Atlas catalog from 1950, and at that time, Atlas was already 39 years old. So let me find the page that is applicable, and we'll talk about the accessories. I do not know what year this lathe was made, but I think it's from the 50s or 60s. But in the catalog from 1950, you can clearly see here what came with it. Now, it did not even come with the motor. You had to buy your own motor. And that's why this one is equipped with an old appliance motor, more than likely. But there's the capacity, again, with a 6-inch swing, 18 inches between centers. But the only thing that came with it, included in the original price, and there are no prices in this catalog, was the set of change gears and a couple of wrenches and an Allen key and the faceplate and the tailstock center. I don't believe that the three-jaw chuck even came with it. Notice that it was equipped originally with Timken ball bearings. In this paragraph, if you want to read through it, and I'll put a still of it at the end, you can see what actually came with it. And here are the speeds and feeds available when you use this machine. You know what? It's very possible that there were no other accessories that came with this lathe by the original owner, other than we know that the gears are missing. The change gears are actually missing, but there are 4 pages here in this catalog of 6-inch lathe attachments, and I'm going to just scan through them real quickly like this, no still. So there's page 1, so you can see that even the 3-jaw was extra. And here's page 2 of Atlas attachments. And this is page 3. I thought maybe that milling attachment would have been in there, but I don't know really how useful it would be. And the taper attachment, all of those things are extra and were pretty expensive even at that time. And finally, here is page 4 of the attachments. And you could do woodworking on it, so you could even buy the chisels and the centers and all of that. I don't know who would want to do that, but there is the mica undercutter. You know, and I've been looking for one of these for years because I'd like to make a demonstration on rebuilding armatures, undercutting them, turning the commutators and all of that. And there are the armature chucks in the very small size. All right, that's enough on attachments. Okay, this is an exciting YouTube first. Never before has this been done on screen, where I compared the size of 3 common lathes in the United States. Number 1, the Unimat is a 3-inch swing. The Atlas, of course, is a 6-inch swing. And in the background, the ubiquitous South Bend 9-inch lathe. It may be difficult for you to compare the sizes in here through the camera work that I'm doing now, but there's all 3. Which one would you want in your basement? Leave a comment. I have not run the lathe yet, but I finally did bolt it down to the cabinet. I probably should have a piece of wood on the top of that to stiffen the sheet metal a little bit, and that's how it was originally set up when I purchased it. But I'm not really done yet. I have not mounted the jack shaft yet. You can see it's loose. Nor have I mounted the motor, and I really do not like that motor because it's an appliance motor and it's got a cobbled up base on it. And remember, I bought that little sander recently, mainly to put that motor on this machine. But you know, when it's poorly wired, there is no switch. I think there was an exterior switch on this cabinet I left at the auction, but right now there's no switch, certainly no reverse. And this is an old appliance cord off of an iron. So it's asbestos coated, and I will need to contact the EPA to find out what to do with this. For those of you that have watched a recent auction video of mine, you might remember that I bought this sander, 1-inch sander, for super cheap, I think $5 or something, but what I was really buying was the motor. And this is the motor I would like to install over here in place of that antiquated appliance motor. And I don't know if I even need a reversing switch. Just a toggle switch would be okay, and there already is a switch on the side of this motor, so I won't have too much work to do. This lathe has a tag on the end of the gear cover here, who originally sold this. Now, it might have been sold used, because it said this dealer here sold, well, they had rentals and leasing and all of that, and new and used, so maybe it was used when they put this tag on. But anyway, there is a zip code on here, so that dates it to about, what, 1961 or 62, something like that. So maybe that's when the machine was originally built. And here's the tag on the end of the bed. So it's model 618, and there is the serial number. If anybody can look that up, let me know when this machine was built. But now I'm suspecting 1960. So when I swing the door open, that's made of aluminum. It's real nice. It still has the original tag right here for the gear settings, and that would be available in the instruction book, which also would have come with this machine. And I do have one of those down in the basement from one of my other machines. But anyway, these gears, which are made of Zama, look very good. Remember, I have no other gears other than this, and I will be interested, I should look it up right now, to determine what speed it is set at now, because if it's just, I do not intend to do any threading on this machine, but I'm interested in the feed rate, and hopefully this is set up for a reasonable feed rate that I can use without buying more gears. And these gears are exclusive to the 6-inch. They are not the same as the 12-inch lathe. And the feed reverse lever seems to work fine. I like to keep it in the neutral position. Well, now I'll open the cover here to the cone pulley and the back gears. Now, I really didn't take my own advice that I'm going to give you right now, but when you buy a lathe at an auction or wherever, check to see that the back gears are okay, that there aren't any missing teeth, both on the spindle here, I'm looking at these two gears, and on the back gears here, because if you've got a broken gear, don't buy the lathe, because you will never find one. But I've seen plenty of lathes at auctions that have missing teeth back here, and that probably happened from someone getting the chuck off, pounding on it. You know, I've talked about that in other videos. But everything looks pretty good here, doesn't it? We got the oilers. Now, I'm not going to run it until I lubricate everything. And the back gear lever works just fine. I haven't pulled the bullpen yet. All right, let me take the chuck off real quickly. And boy, does this need some evaporust, doesn't it? Now, that is a 1-inch diameter, 10 thread per inch spindle. So it's the same thread in both of these chucks. This is the 4-jaw chuck. You know, it kind of looks like it's never been used. Now, I do not have any chuck key wrenches, come to think of it. Now, this is a number 2 Morse taper in the headstock, whereas it's a number 1 in the tailstock. So I just brought this up out of the basement shop. I haven't cleaned that yet, but as you can see, that could be the headstock center. By the way, there is no faceplate or dog plate either. But also, moving this aside, a Jacobs chuck number 2 also could be used as the headstock chuck. That's got to be cleaned out. There's something in there. Probably some critters. Now, looking at the tailstock, I could not get the chuck out of there by backing up. It's really in there tight, but when I tapped it right here, it came off on this taper. So I will take the quill out off camera sometime and use a ramrod, and that will come loose. It just needs some work. And that's pretty darn rusty. That's the one that I'm not going to use. Now, there was no wrench on the tailstock, so it's 11/16, so I just dug this up from my huge selection of scrap wrenches. That fits, so I will saw this off right about here and round it off, and I'll have a nice wrench for this. Not original, I'd rather have an original, but really do not want to wrench this long because it gives too much leverage. It should only be, what, about that long. Okay, this is the tool post that Michael gave me, and it fits in there just fine in spite of the fact that this is a homemade compound. So I don't know what happened to the original, but if you look back through my archives, I have videos probably 5 or more years ago where I had another lathe, either like this or it might have been the Dunlop model. I do not remember without going back to look, but I did make a compound, but obviously that's what someone did here, and it looks like they did a good job, although I'd much rather have the original. And later on when I tinker, I'll see if I can get that other ball crank to fit on here. I do not like the looks of that at all. But it moves nicely. I did oil it. And the cross side slide seems to be okay. Of course it needs a cleanup. Everything needs a cleanup. This thing, I don't see any damage to the bed. So there's no physical damage to it other than the rust and the fact that someone did not take care of the machine. Several weeks ago I was playing around with this and I was using a razor scraper to remove some of the rust, and some of it comes off pretty readily because much of that staining is old grease as well. So watch this, although there is rust here. As you can see, a lot of that scrapes right off. So cleaning that up and then using maybe some 400 or 600 grit abrasive or even some Scotch-Brite, that's probably going to look pretty good. But over here where you see this rust, oh yeah, that comes off too. Now I really don't have the heart to do this, and it may never get done. I am kind of sick of doing restorations. The paint looks pretty good on this machine though. And you can see the lead screw has some rust on it, but is probably in very good condition. Other than that, let me scrape the ways right here under the chuck, because this is where you usually will see all kinds of damage and dings where people drop the work or a tool or even the chuck. But this is just as smooth as can be. I'm not hitting any high spots whatsoever. So once it's cleaned up, this really is in very good shape. So I do not think that this machine had much use in its whole life. Well, that's about as far as I'm going to go in this video chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up if you did. And you can go ahead and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and there is no commitment or obligation. So do that if you would. It would help the channel. And let me know in the comments if you would like me to pursue this in regards to restoring it, or at least cleaning it up and making it into a usable machine. And maybe even make some little projects on it, because it would be interesting to compare the capabilities of this machine with my 12-inch Atlas Craftsman that is down in Studio B. Anyway, I've got 15 or 16 other videos out there for you to watch, most of them languishing in the archive, so check them out if you will, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Here's a little peek behind the scenes.